welcome to this late night slot. It's Halloween. I saw some costumes. Yesterday we were dealing with digital death, which would probably be a little bit more suitable for that particular holiday. Tonight we're dealing with digital life and how digital technologies are fueled by our identities, but also perhaps shaped more and more so. We'll see a variety of voices in this panel. Gemma, Galdon, Claves, famous new media artist Jeremy Bell. I'll not mention him yet. And Geert Lovink will respond to the issues at hand. This wonderful panel is moderated by Natalie Dixon, who is a researcher, passionate new media thinker. And in her work, she explores the opportunities in digital technologies for both human and non-human expression. And that actually is where this panel starts. Please welcome Natalie Dixon.
So thank you for coming tonight, and we have a very exciting lineup. We're going to start with Jeremy.
I thought I said no.
Famous new media artist.
Yeah, that's okay. That's fine.
Okay.
I like that.
Sorry.
That sounds good.
Sorry.
That's all right.
And then we're going to follow that with Gemma, Galdon, Claves. And finally, Geert Lovink is going to give us a response to the themes of the talk tonight. So 3 speakers. And we'll take questions after all the talks. But if there's, a chance in between, we will take 1 or 2 questions. So we're going to keep it loose. To start off with, famous new media artist.
Yes. Should I start? Is it my time now?
No, just 1 second.
Okay.
Just 1 second. Whose work explores custom software and performance. The online publication rhizome.org said the following about him: Jeremy has plowed a compelling and hilarious road through the developments of digital communication technologies. His is an incisive exploration of the intersection between video, computing, performance, and the body. He said to me earlier, the body is the new software. His work has appeared at several major galleries and institutions, amongst them the Tate in London, the Stedelijk in Amsterdam, part of Transmedial. And please welcome me in join me in welcoming Jeremy, famous new media artist.
Thanks. Thank you. Just ignore what she said. Anyway, I'm actually really excited. I'm really excited. Okay, hello, hi guys. Really excited to be here. I'm famous new media artist, but I'm not. I would normally tell you who I am, but I've been doing some soul searching. I'm famous, so you probably know who I am, but I've been told the lighting here is just right, so you can't see my face. I don't think you can. I think I'm quite anonymous right now, and that's because I've had a few troubling conversations. I've looked at a few PowerPoint decks, and I'm troubled about my privacy a little bit. The internet. That's how I got famous. I got famous by putting my face on the internet, but I'm told that my face maybe is a liability now, that putting my face online literally everywhere is maybe putting me at risk, that it might be hurting my future self. And so I think about the future all the time, and I'm just super worried, really anxious actually, and to be in front of all these people now that you guys are all looking at my face, but I still want to be famous. So I've been thinking, how could I be famous without my face? It's a difficult question. I mean, you wouldn't know. You don't have this face that you can't see, of course. But if you could see this face, you would know that it's actually quite stunning. It's one of the world's best faces. People actually have a hard time looking directly at it. They say Rhizome once said it's comparable to God if we knew what God looked like. But anyway. It's a famous face. Maybe later, groupies, you can check it out in private. But I've been thinking about an alternative, and I need an alternative. And I'm a thinker. I'm an ideas man, and so I looked around and I looked through all these old dusty art history books. I don't know what the point of them is, but what I kept seeing mentions of hands, the artist hand. It kept saying the artist hand. I never saw any hands. The hand wasn't visible. They said that wasn't the point. I didn't really get it, but at the same time, it's like I realized artists don't make things. They said that the artist's hand was in the work, and I thought, artists don't make things anymore. They aggregate them like institutions. They pull things together. They don't make physical things. They're actually like little mini museums. They're like little institutions. And then I was at this party, and I was getting a little silly, a little drunk. I was a little loose, and there was like a nail art table where they would paint your nails, and there was just such a talented young woman there. She was a real talent, I have to say. It could be famous someday. And she did the most exquisite nail paintings on my nails, and I thought to myself, this is it. This is the opportunity the hand is expressive. Look at this hand. This is my hand here. It's full of character and expression. It can make shapes. It can be jazzy. It can give you a thumbs up. It can do all. Look, it's almost as good as my face. But I felt like, well, I could do better. I'm a new media artist. I use technology to make things better. I looked at that nail polish on my hands and I thought, what if these weren't little tiny artwork paintings? What if they were sculptures? What if they were videos? What if this was I thought of my hand more like an institution, the same way the world's laziest artists do. What if I could aggregate all of the world's artworks, all of time on my hand? What if this hand could be everything? That would make me even more famous, and I could do that with less work, which was like music to my ears. So I set about writing some software, which I want to show you guys today, and I'm really excited about it, even though I seem nervous. That's my face thing. Remember the face thing. So I wrote some software. Now, to unlock it, you're looking at my hand, you're thinking, Jeremy, that's a pretty plain hand. I know you're not thinking that, but like if it was your hand, you'd be thinking, God, I have plain hands. However, so now not anyone can have this, so I have a little code. I have to unlock it using gestures, but I'm going to unlock my hand. My hand's going to become an institution in front of you. I just have to unlock it. And the way I do that, well, I'm not telling you exactly. There we go. I just did a secret rotation code there. But now you can see, it looks kind of boring. You're kind of let down. You're like, Jeremy, that's just a bunch of cubes. This isn't just cubes. This is software in my hand together as one. And these aren't cubes. These are plinths. Plinths. You know what a plinth is? Plinth is power. See these cubes in a museum. These host and make precious the world's most mundane things. And now they're attached to my hand. I have 4 plinths that could host any artwork. So let's add some art, I guess. And how do you do that? Well, it's easy. You just do this. You dazzle. You do a little dazzle. You dance with your hands, and you can generate exhibitions. You see this? I just jiggle my fingers. And all the world's exhibitions, look, I've got the Venus de Milo, Durer, Ai Weiwei, a palm tree. This is the internet, so you gotta just accept there's gonna be palm trees. But I could remix it. I could have brands. Whoa, this is a contemporary exhibition. We've got Nike sponsoring it alongside the Venus de Milo and a Donald Judd. Wow, look, Stalin alongside Picasso. Who would have thought? And Jeff Koons, we've got video. Here's a Ryan Trecarton video, crazy, alongside the Jeff Koons. And oh, look at that, the original Duchamp, the ready-made, all together at once. And look at this, I'm still expressing myself. My hands are still gorgeous. In fact, they're better than ever. And I'm just expressing all of art history, all of time, object, form. Ooh, a Brancusi. Yes, it's beautiful. And so an exhibition, of course, would be nothing without a title. So I thought, how am I going to get the world's, I need a title for this exhibition. I need didactics. I need words. Of course, an exhibition's nothing without words. And so I set about, I found this way I don't know if you guys know this thing called eFlux, but they put out press releases, and I thought, I'll just aggregate and remix the titles from eFlux. And so there we go. This is the Asia Pacific Triennial, and this is the, Empathy and Abstraction Show. And maybe, Earthrise, pre-ecological visions in art. Yes, that's what I'm thinking when I look at this. Corruption, everybody knows. Political populism, yes, the world's had bloodlines, wow. And so you could just sit here all day sort of with your fancy hands expressing yourself and building exhibitions, frankly, better than maybe what we've seen here today, I'm not sure. But Asia Pacific, becoming Jewish, I'm not sure, actually, about that one. 2 Davids, though, which is strange. Love. Anyway, so the possibilities are sort of endless. Of course, I did, because I'm here and so excited. By the way, I didn't thank you guys for coming, and that's on me. It was a big mistake. I love people. I love you, the audience, and I especially love the Netherlands. It's not my homeland. It's not. I have nothing to do with it. But I just find it just beautiful. The people are so beautiful. I find myself typing in beautiful Dutch people into Google image search and just staring at people when I go back to my hotel room. It's just such a wonderful survey of humanity. And so, of course, I've included a Dutch mode here. I'm just going to activate it. And there we go. We've got some great empathy and abstraction from some of the world's best Dutch artists. Of course, we've got Missing Ear Man there, Van Gogh. We've got a Rietveld chair. So it's not just relegated to. It's not just art. I mean, anything could be art if you put it on a plinth. It's also design. It's craft. It's a pig that's tattooed, Wim Delvoye, or it's Raphael Rosendahl. It's a website. Actually, these are the only 4 pieces that we were able to collect, because I was told, tried to get some money, and there's austerity measures at this time. So, but the Netherlands is on a comeback track. Don't watch out, guys. Anyway, all of the world's media might be available someday in the Netherlands again. However, on my hand today, I can just get out of Dutch mode, and then I'm back in the real world, where I can host almost anything. Now, of course, we have our titles, we have our beautiful exhibition, we have tattooed pigs. Now we're ready to host an opening, and so. Well, of course, an opening on your hand, you say? Yes, I'm hanging out with friends, and they want to enjoy some art. Let's have a party, let's drink some wine. And so I just have to press the O key here. I don't have a gesture for this yet, but here we go. And yes, we have lasers, and we have music, and we're dancing, and maybe we're making some new exhibitions. Maybe we're dancing ourselves through a series of new exhibitions on capital realism. Yes, wonderful. Now we're talking. Woo! And I'm actually expressing myself in a way my face could never have done. I can't imagine a more powerful identity than that of the institution that I've now incorporated into my nails. And that's it. That's really all there is to it. And I just want to thank you guys. I'll turn off the opening. Opening has to end someday. Anyway, that's it. That's all I have for you today. We're adding new artworks to the collection, aggregated. We have the whole internet at our fingertips, on our fingertips, I guess. And I just wanted to say thank you and peace.
Thank you for that performance, famous new media artist. So our next speaker is Gemma Galdon Clavel. She's a research director at Edicus Research and Consulting in Barcelona. Her work is focused on the legal, social, and ethical concerns of data architectures. She is a policy analyst by training. She's worked on projects related to surveillance and human rights, and the societal impact of technology, amongst others. She's held positions at several organizations, including the Open University of Catalonia, the United Nations Institute for Training and Research, and the Catalan Institute for Public Security. She recently gave a lecture in Manchester, I think it was, and 2 quotes stuck with me. The first was, "We negotiate our identities," and the second was, "Data is the oil of the 21st century." Please welcome Gemma.
Not easy to follow up after that. That was really great. Okay, so happy Day of the Dead. I'm going to scare you a little bit, but then I'm also going to encourage you to be a bit naughty. So I think I'm really tuned in to the spirit of the weekend, hopefully. So before the presentation's up, let's start with an exercise. I'm going to ask you 3 serious questions, and I'd like you to please take them seriously. First question, who do you think you are? Think about this for just 2 seconds. Who do you think you are? Now turn to your right. Who do you think the person sitting to your right is? Now, who do you think they think you are? It's a pretty interesting exercise, how we think about ourselves and how that reflects onto others and how we perceive others. So identity is a fascinating thing for ourselves and for others. And it's something that we're constantly building and trying to come to terms with. By the time we understand who we are, we'll probably be laying in our deathbed, like, now I get it. But it's taken me all this time to work out who I am. So that's what I'm going to talk about. That's what I want to help you and us reflect on. Identity and data doubles, because with data, this whole complex identity things just got worse. So traditionally, we kind of knew who we were navigating ourselves, and we had identity cards that relate us who we were to the state. And so you had an identity card where your name was there and the name of your parents, your address, a number to identify you before the state. So, like things that would help you navigate our modern societies. Okay, identity card. Doesn't really have much to do with you, but it helps you get things done. But then other cards started to appear. Your bank card. It's not an identity card, but actually holds quite a lot of information on what you do and who you are, what you buy. So part of your identity is also in this card. So now you have the card to relate to the state that has your identity in relation to the state, and your bank card, which has your identity in relation to your bank. Then more cards. Health card. All your health history digitalized and can be accessed using this card. You can travel throughout Europe and doctors will be able to access your medical history. So part of your health identity is also in this card. And so new identities in cards. And then loyalty cards. Another part of your identity. Now, shops know who you are and what you buy from them, and your shopping partners say quite a lot about yourself. The famous example, if you're pregnant, you buy different things. You buy things that pregnant women buy. Therefore, the shop knows about something as intimate as being pregnant. So part of your identity, again, in this loyalty card that you get, if you want, when you go to a shop. Then out of the world of cards, the mobile phone. That's just like the ultimate identity data grabbing machine. All of a sudden, your identity through the people that you talk to, the places that you go if you have GPS, you have a smartphone, that's also in this device. And so we not only have lots of cards with parts of our identities, but also devices that capture bits of our daily identity. Then more things, social media, where you're communicating how you feel, who you're seeing, pictures of where you are. And so more spaces that capture bits of your identity. Quite interesting, and the potential for that, it's amazing, not only for private companies, but also for the state. So let's take it one step further. Let's just build sensor cities and sensor societies. So this is a drawing that we did for an exhibition last year, identifying the points of data collection in a public space and also in private space. So you see a street here with the camera on the bank machine, the sensors to sense traffic, the drones even, the Google car, the smart bus stop, but also inside your home, your smart TV, your Xbox, in your work, the CCTV camera, the fingerprint that you might need to use to enter your workplace, the shop, where again, there's CCTV, there might be a wireless system that captures the unique identifier of your phone, your loyalty card, public transport, your smart card when you're entering public transport so that the carrier can know when you entered and when you left. Let's just make the most of this data world because there's all these cards and devices that are storing little bits of your data and your personality and your identity. What if we could mix all that? What if we could mix health and social media data and foresee the diseases that you'll have in the future? Wouldn't that be great? To know whether you'll have the flu next month or cancer in 5 years. It sounds kind of tempting, doesn't it? Both for us and for the companies that might want to sell us the remedies for those diseases. Let's mix bank data with loyalty card data, and so that our shop knows whether we're buying things that they also sell in another shop, and so they can give you a voucher to make sure that you don't go to Blocker when you could be going to HEMA. Wouldn't that be great, both for you, you only have to go to HEMA once, but also for HEMA, because, hey, they keep you as a customer, you never go to the competition. Or let's mix our mobile data, information on who we talk to, with our social media data, and then we'll know how people feel, where you go, and who you share things with. That'd be fantastic. The promise of big data, it's just amazing, all these possibilities. What if we knew everything about everyone? Wouldn't that be fantastic? The good to the world that we'd be able to do. That is great, and we keep hearing this discourse. If we knew everything about everyone, we would be able to make the world a better place. Well, really. There's a hidden mantra in this discourse, which I find quite astonishing, which says that if we know things, we'll be able to address them. Well, if companies and governments need to know things so that they can act and make the world a better place, I can tell them about lots of people that are currently crossing the Mediterranean in plastic boats, trying to get to Europe, escaping a civil war. We know about that. Those people have cell phones. They can be geolocated. The phone carriers could help rescue teams find them on the sea and rescue them. We have the information. How come we're not doing anything? So maybe there's something wrong or rotten about this promise that more data and more interconnection of data will lead to better outcomes. And so you then approach governments and companies and say, actually, I have this data, I have data that says that if we were more equal societies, people would be happier. Let's act on that. We have data. Let's make sure we have equal societies. Why don't we act on that? And then the response is this. I don't want to hear that. That's not what this promise of big data is about, which is quite interesting because behind this promise of better decision-making or of better societies, there's often casualties. Like this young woman. This young woman, when she was 17, she was chosen to be the first youth commissioner for a police office, a police department in the UK. The UK, this police department realized they had a problem with young people, that young people didn't like the police, and so they thought, why don't we create a position for a young person, someone who's just 16 or 17, who can work with us and help us identify the problems of their age group and their community. I think that's a really great idea. And so they put an ad out and said, we're looking for the youth commissioner for our police department. And they got lots of CVs, and they interviewed lots of people, and this lady won. So she was the best candidate when they looked at her CV and when they interviewed her. After she was elected and she was given the position, just a few days after, the media started coming up with tweets that she had written when she was 14. This young lady had sometimes gone out and gotten drunk and tweeted about it. Sometimes she had made statements that could not be shared by everyone, maybe. So she was immediately fired. She didn't even start. Like, she was removed before starting that job, which kind of makes you think, who are we? Because when she went through the traditional hiring process, she was the best candidate. But when data kicked in, she was the worst. When social media kicked in, she was the worst. So is she the best or the worst? Is she something in between? In the end, she was the worst. She lost the job, and the position was actually never filled. And there's lots of questions that come up with just this example. There's lots of casualties of the data society. But with this emphasis or addiction to data, memory is becoming compulsory. What will be the consequences of that? My whole life has been on social media for the last, 5 years? If that's the case, then for 35 years of my life, I can pretty much make up who I was. Younger people today can't do that. What impact will that have, not only on their life chances, but their chances of stepping into political action, for instance? Could you run to be a mayor if your whole life has been on social media? Can you ensure that no one ever took a video of you doing something that the public will not approve? No, you can't. So all of a sudden, all this promise of big data and the better world becomes a curse, much more than a promise. Also, when you see that this thing with transparency, let's all be transparent because that'll lead us to a better world, it's also transparency for everyone else. So everyone wants the next person to be transparent, but not me. I have things to hide. I have things that I want to negotiate, that I don't want to have visible for everyone. That's especially true for companies. It's like, how come citizens have to be transparent and all our data has to be accessible for everyone? All the companies, they can mix and match all the data from all the cards and all the devices. But then you ask those companies, can I see your accounts? Can I see how much tax you pay? All of a sudden, transparency is not so cool, which is quite interesting. But then, of course, these companies are not interested in us. It's not about me with my name and my address. It's about my profile. The goal of data gathering and data mining is to create profiles. We don't have the technical capacity to cater to your only needs. The goal of all this is just to create categories. And the best way I've come up to convey what those categories mean and what they do to you is go to an online dating site. I think you could compare profiling to the horoscope. It's like as accurate as that. But I think that online dating sites are even better at transmitting what these profiles do and how accurate or non-accurate they are. So I went on to OkCupid, which I'm told is a popular online dating site, and I did the test. When you go onto an online dating site, you have to do a test so that they can match you with the right people, right? They're doing exactly the same thing that profiling does behind your back when you use a loyalty card somewhere or when anyone gathers your data. And so I answered all the questions, and I got this. This is me, apparently. I'm the deliberate, gentle love dreamer, or I was the day that I felt this, I guess. I don't really identify with that, but that's not really the point. You may not identify with it, but still, that's the result that you got. With online dating, I can control that because I see it. But when a company, an insurance, or a government comes up with my profile, I never know. So I don't know if it's accurate or not. But then there's a further process, which is really worrying, which is that who you are determines who you should be from now on. And that happens with online dating, but also with any kind of data mining and profiling. So the same website, after telling me that I was this romantic blah, 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 said that I had this exact female opposite, this Genghis Khan, the random, brutal sex master, which sounds really sexy, I gotta say. Much better than my own profile anyway. But it's quite interesting because all of a sudden I have my nemesis. So it's not only about who I am, it's about who I should be against. So next time I see a Genghis Khan on the street, I'm gonna be like, get away from me. Because the computer says, you're my nemesis. I should not relate to you because I'm the complete opposite. But then there's something that is even more worrying. It says, consider the lover boy when you're trying to get laid, but always avoid the 5-night stand, the false messiah, the horny boar, and the last man on earth. So all of a sudden, these questions that amounted to nothing, that determined that I was this romantic person, determined that I should go for one kind of man and not the other kind. And that's exactly what profiling does. Profiling limits your possibilities. Because of who the data thinks that you are, the data determines, the algorithms determine that you should like a certain category of things. So all of a sudden, your range of choice has totally diminished. And so the promise of capitalism, of being able to choose freely between lots of alternatives, disappears, funnily enough. All of a sudden, your computer or your service, your insurer, whoever, will just give you a particular set of alternatives because they've decided that you are that specific person that should only be interested in this. And this is what happens when you get online advertising or any kind of recommendations by any service provider that makes decisions on the basis on who they think that you are. But also, this is often the excuse for what I call data despotism, which is the use of your data to avoid relating to you. And that's very common in public policy. Because we have all your data, we know when you got on the bus, we know which car you own, we can make public policy, we can make cities or anything without actually talking to you because we already know who you are. And so in their world, we're all in these categories of online dating, and decisions get made on the basis of that, and data becomes, quite funnily, an excuse to never talk to you again, to never relate to you again, to never come near you again, and try to get to know you, try to get what your identity is, try to dig you, which is, I think, a quite perverse outcome of the data society. So I said I was going to scare you. This was the scary part, getting to understand, to know what happens behind our backs with our data. But there is hope, because you can get to know your data double. On the basis of the things that come back to you, you can derive what the algorithm is saying about you. So if the algorithm tells me you should date the lover boy, I can derive that I am the lover girl. And you can do that with online advertising or any product that comes your way. Who does the machine, who does the algorithm think that you are? Get acquainted with your data double, with this shadow of data that you leave behind. Try to understand what it is that these services know about you, and on the basis of what they're making decisions. And once you know that, bomb it. Sabotage it, obfuscate it, play with your data. Get to know what it is that they want about you, and then play with it. You don't have to provide your data all the time. Oftentimes, you can choose which data you provide. I just checked in a hotel, and they wanted my phone number, my email, and my ID number. My credit card data is okay. I'm checking in a hotel, I'm going to have to pay. But the rest, why do you want my email? Why do you want my ID number? It doesn't make any sense. So fake it, bomb it, make up personas, own your data double, and then you'll start to see how the algorithm is getting all that information and giving it back to you. And that's, unfortunately, that's the only remedy that we have at the moment to face this process of creating data doubles or online personas. That's the way that we can feed the machine fake data and make sure that our data shadows become a reflection of something else. And that's how we can sabotage the awful process of profiling us, assigning categories to us behind our backs with no kind of accountability whatsoever. So what I would like you to take home today is the possibility, the chance, the future of obfuscation and sabotaging of your data. It can be done. And if we all did that, if we all obfuscated our data, there'll come a time when these ways of dealing with who we are online would not work anymore. And then maybe then they'd have to start relating to us again as citizens or as people, as human beings. And then we would have a chance to create better worlds. Thank you.
Just 1 second, Gemma. Is there 1 or 2 questions that we could take now before we move on to Geert? Is there a microphone for this?
Yeah, first of all, thank you for ending your lecture on a positive note. That's really unique in these kind of debates. I would like to make it even more positive because 2 seconds ago I was different than who I am now. So the reality pertaining to the moment is never going to be represented by anything on the internet, by any kind of data. So therefore, they are never going to be able to tap into my true desires in any particular moment. So this is a larger hope that we can have. Because in the long term, in the short term, we can say this is a problem now, but in the long term, it will always fail, and they will never get to this truth of me, of what I want right now. So they will never be able to capitalize on that.
Those are different things. Yes, what they know about you is not who you are, in the same way that I'm not that person that OkCupid came up with. But they can make decisions assuming that that's who you are unless we contest it. And that is the problem at the moment, that we tend to think that data is actually, that our data doubles are a reproduction of who we are. And the decisions can be made on the basis of that. So unless we subvert that, and we have lots of data, and they know that. We know that the same person using different devices will get a different data double in as much as 60% of their profile, the same person. So they're not accurate at all, but because they pretend that they are, decisions can be made on the basis of that. And decisions that can be very serious for your life chances, like the job that you'll get or the insurance premium that you will pay. And so unless we start sabotaging on a massive scale, unless we start questioning the accuracy of those data doubles, as long as they can get away with saying data is the same as actual human beings, they will make decisions on the basis of that. And therefore, the faults of their technology, their inability to capture who we truly are in all of our complexity, will amount to nothing, unfortunately.
Thank you.
Okay, 1 more question? Well, maybe we could get this microphone here. Oh, you've been hijacked.
Hi.
Okay.
Sorry. You said obfuscated, bomb the system, basically. But beyond that, what are you proposing? I mean, that's like to sort of obfuscate or to muddle with the system. But from a public policy perspective, there's very good reason for doing this, for collecting the data. It's sort of trying to measure and try to figure out what the policy should be. What are you proposing to do that there?
Yeah, in an ideal world, I would be against people bombing their data or sabotaging their data doubles. In an ideal world, I'd be against people using Tor. In the real world, I sabotage my data all the time and I use Tor because there's so much abuse of our data. There's so little accountability in how that data is being gathered that the only alternative at the moment is to sabotage the system. I would like to see a world where the principles of data protection are actually implemented and where public administration and private companies understand that data minimization is compulsory in our legal systems. But that is not the case because there's this assumption that data is the oil of the 21st century. There's this data holism by which organisms just capture all the data that they can, even though it's extremely expensive to keep it. They don't know what to do about it. They don't know how to analyze it, but they get it. And so you never know how that data can come back to haunt you in the future. There's been so many cases in my country of people who have had to step down from office, give up jobs because of their online activity. So that's the thing about privacy. You don't know what it is until it's taken away from you. So you might do something today that you think it's totally fine, but but then in 10 years you're not that person anymore. But that data is still there because someone captured it behind your back. So until we have the safeguards, the only alternative, sadly, is to sabotage the system. The hope, however, is that by sabotaging the system, we'll be able to teach a lesson and we'll be able to walk towards a context, a world where data is dealt with more responsibly and where this addiction to data is put through the system of data protection in a way. And once this happens, then we'll be able to say, actually, be nice with your data, because in some cases you might have an interest in your mayor, your town hall, your government, or HEMA knowing who you are to give you better advertising. But that's just not the case. You have no control over your data whatsoever. The exchanges between public and private happen behind our backs. So as long as they don't fix that, the only alternative, I'm afraid, is sabotage.
Okay, we can take more questions after Geert's response, but I would like to introduce Geert. Thank you, Gemma. You want to join us here? Okay. Thank you. No, it's okay. Geert needs very little introduction in these parts of the world, but for those of you who don't know his work, Geert is a veteran media theorist. He's an author of multiple books and an extremely well-loved media professor. In the realm of social media, he is obsessed with alternative architectures. He makes no bones about his opinion on the subject. His 2012 book is titled Networks Without a Cause, A Critique of Social Media. And his forthcoming book, due out in the spring of next year, is titled Social Media Abyss. Under the auspices of the Institute of Network Cultures, which he founded, he co-hosted this year the Facebook Farewell Party. Some of you might have been to that. And the Unlike Us conference, which took place in Amsterdam not so long ago. So please welcome Geert.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me. And soon we're going to have the debate here, so I'm just going to give an intro to that. Yes, I wanted to briefly discuss here where I think we are concerning the social media question, as I call it, which is rapidly, becoming as big as the social question once was in the late 19th, early 20th century. So I want to talk strategies, and I want to see what works and what doesn't work. Indeed, I myself stopped with Facebook in 2010 and joined one of the first campaigns to leave Facebook together. After having used this service for a couple of years, I thought that was a really a good idea not to do that on my own and to delete my account, knowing that you can't delete it, but to at least do that together. And then, of course, the year 2011 came, the uprisings in Egypt, the Indignados, the Occupy then, and we started, Unlike Us, a network that was focusing both on the social media critique, so what Gemma just told, the awareness, to raise the awareness about all these tricks to invade our privacy and to basically fool us what was really going on in terms of very brutal social media marketing that was going on behind our backs. And in that year, I think it was already also very obvious that the secret services were also complicit into this. So Unlike Us was a platform, and still is, it still exists, of people who say, well, we have this critique and we need to raise this awareness, but we should at the same time build alternatives, right? So we're talking now about 4 years ago. It was a time when there was really some kind of optimism amongst artists, activists, programmers, people involved in NGOs in this field, that that at least we could build alternatives. There was Loria in Spain. There was there was a lot going on, and the idea was also a little bit in our we felt that there was a certain we were confident that these giants were going to go away, and a lot of people used, let's say, the MySpace or Hives argument, namely that these platforms exhaust themselves, they come and go, they might become very, very big, think of MySpace, but that eventually people would get bored, and I myself, I believed this as well, and I thought, well, if we push hard, maybe something could happen. But if you have been to Eugene Morozov's lecture last Thursday night, I think he made it very, very clear what I also believe now, 4 years into this, unlike us efforts, namely that these platforms have become, monopolies, and that they really lock you in. And that there's also an element of I don't know if it's complicit boredom, or if it's numbness, or if it's just a repetition of the everyday life, which makes us forget what is really going on. Zizek writes about this always, time and again, about this, public false consciousness that we have and that we expose. We know it's bad, but we do it anyway, right? And we have really, with the social media question, we have come in that stage now, because in a way, the public awareness campaigns and the things that Gemma was telling us, they're not coming to an end. No, there's even more evidence. There's evidence, there's so much evidence, but in a way it doesn't matter anymore, right? Okay, you could say the use of Twitter and Facebook, especially in Western Europe and even in the United States, has plateaued. That might be the case, right? And this is also why they need to go to Africa, because these companies are addicted to hypergrowth. So they really need the hypergrowth, and they're just not gonna find it anymore in our region here, or in North America for that matter. So they really need to go for global hegemony, for a complete takeover of all markets and populations, right? And we're now kind of in that stage. Google has also gone in that stage of formulating aggressive foreign policy, documents, and they've really gone in that way. So, so you could say, well. The only thing that can happen is that they can capture the ignorance of a couple of more billions, simply because they have not yet heard Gemma's story or her arguments, and they are not aware yet of what's really going on in terms of. This whole political economy of the data that we are now slowly but steadily, trying to understand. And this means that there is a certain stagnation happening, and I'm really concerned about that. I was ecstatic and really excited in June 2013 with the revelations of Edward Snowden, but we're now a good 2 years later. And I'm not so sure where this project is going at the moment. I have to say, there's a whole trajectory, and I'm really part of that, and I describe it, and I'm really reflecting on it, going from WikiLeaks through Anonymous to Snowden, and now in a phase very slowly that we're moving into a post-Snowden era where there's a proliferation happening of whistleblowers and explosive material that keeps coming out. But at the same time, it's the Zizek in my ear who informs me, of this false consciousness that is rapidly spreading. And yes, I'm very concerned about that, and I would like to discuss that with all of you here. So please sit down and let's discuss this.
Thanks, Geert. Thanks for joining us again. Just before we start with the questions, I wanted to ask, considering your obsession with alternative architectures and what you've just said now, what are our alternatives? In social media abyss, you've discussed this a little bit.
Well, you clearly said sabotage, and sabotage comes in many different forms, of course. Yes, and sabotage is very serious. I think. By the way, there can be quite a high cost of sabotage. So it can even be considered criminal by some. By some of, and it's not always possible. So to do it on an individual basis is sometimes simply not possible. We know how difficult it is, to change retrospectively change your identity in Facebook, for instance. It's next to impossible. And of course, this is still going on. The whole controversy between, let's say, the transvestites and Mark Zuckerberg over the question of, can you have more identities on Facebook, or can you hide your real identity on Facebook? I thought at some point, that this was finally resolved, but apparently, lately, over the last few months, it proves that it is not. So it's still a very contentious topic, and Facebook, has this plan that they want to leave, right, the social networking services, and that they really are interested to become the global ID provider. This is really their ultimate business model, because maybe there comes a day that I'm getting tired of liking your baby pictures and so on, right? But and they know that. So but they've got another idea, what to do with us, and so they want to really use that profile that you described so well. And sell that profile and really use it as a gatekeeper. So if you go in certain universities, you need to give your Facebook ID, and if you don't have a Facebook, you can't read those bloody papers. I can't believe it. It's incredible, but this is already the case. And there are also city governments. Imagine city governments where you have to, if you want to buy or consult certain of their services, you need to log in with your Facebook account. This is incredible, but.
But Gemma, if I could just pick it up here, is it our responsibility to juggle the juxtaposition of our so-called real identity and the subversive and fake and muddied identities that we create along the way? Is it our responsibility, or does someone share this with us?
It shouldn't be, and it really angers me that the industry tends to say, oh, you just tweak with your privacy settings and then you'll be fine. I think that's just so unfair. Especially, I think young people are at a way worse position, because, as I said, I can hide about 35 years of my life. But younger people cannot do that. As I said, memory becomes compulsory, so they will not be able to forget who they once were, because if that's become data, then that can be thrown back at them at any given point. I think that it is the responsibility of users, but not in terms of do something and mind your own data, because you can't, but in terms of understanding how technology works. I do think that if you go and buy a car, if you don't know about cars, you'll get someone who knows about cars, because you know that if you don't know how cars work, you will get a bad car. With technology, we don't do that. We just trust technology, and we don't understand how it works. We buy it anyway, and that's highly irresponsible. If I go and buy a car, they can sell me a car without an engine. I couldn't tell the difference. As long as it has wheels, I'll buy it. And that's why I should not be buying cars. But if you don't understand how algorithms work, or how the unique identifiers of your phone work, how come you go and buy phones? If you cannot tell the difference between a phone that cares about your privacy as much as they can, and one that doesn't, how come you're going out and buying a phone? We would not do that with any other technology, and we do it with our phones, which is quite interesting. But I do think that the responsibility lays with governments and the industry. But there is a part of the industry that can be us. It doesn't have to be just Twitter and Facebook. We can come up with privacy-enhancing solutions that come out to the market, and I think we have a huge technological problem. Data cannot be deleted. And that is a technical problem that we have not been able to solve. It's not just that companies don't want to delete the data, it's that they can't. So we need a lot more research and initiatives in how do we delete data in a way that it's safe and we can make sure that it never comes back to us. And that is something we can take it on as a challenge as a society, but also as private entities doing research or development or innovation. So I think it's a threesome. It's people, companies, and governments.
Okay, so that shift in control is something that I would like to just move towards famous new media artist.
It's okay, you can call me Jeremy.
Can I call you Jeremy now? Are we cool like that?
Yeah, I'm over that whole thing.
Okay,
It's
good,
stupid.
good. Because I think the fantastic. Then the quote of the evening must be "Plinths are power."
Yeah.
So
for sure.
how can we relate this to what has just been said by Gemma and Geert? You are, it seems, wresting back control in a way, straight to the hand, using bodyist software?
Yeah, in that example. I don't know what all the fuss is about. None of this changes the way it feels to make love to a beautiful woman, or the texture of Italian leather in a BMW C-Class, or the feeling to stand at the foot of the Grand Canyon and look out over a harem of slaves or something. All of those things, if you've experienced them, are more delightful than any Facebook profile could bring you. The Facebook profile is just an index for people to reference that can't, it's for that fear of missing out that you're trying to instill in everyone else. That's all it is, really, is a postcard from a better place.
On that note, we don't have a lot of time left, but I would really love to use that time that we have to ask questions, or for you to ask questions, rather. Is there someone in the audience who has questions for our three speakers?
It's a question for Gemma. Isn't this obfuscation the most cowardish way of resistance? Because it's invisible. How would we know how widespread we are resisting?
It's word of mouth. You don't put ads up, but you can tell people. There's more and more people being vocal about obfuscation. So it has a chance at becoming a trend. But I often say that I'm in the business of privacy by disaster. Lots of people talk about privacy by design, which I don't like. What we see in our current societies is privacy by disaster. Every other day in the media, you get stories about data being hacked, leaked, misused, misinterpreted. And every time this happens, people go like, oh my God, I've been just, using this without thinking twice about it. And actually, maybe I should be more careful. Problem is, there's no alternative. So we all feel trapped, the ones that are still on Facebook. We feel trapped in Facebook. Like if we had an alternative, we would move. But there's no alternative. So every time Facebook comes up with new privacy settings that I hate, what can I do? Give up on all those things that I've been telling people for so long and all the interactions that I've had? Is that the only alternative? Then most people are going to be like, actually, that's too high a cost to pay. But if alternatives come up, then people might move. There was something that happened in Spain a year and a half ago. We use WhatsApp a lot in Spain because texting is very expensive. So when WhatsApp came up, the uptake was massive. And a year and a half ago, it was on the news and people started talking that WhatsApp was not safe, that it didn't encrypt your messages. People didn't know what encryption meant, but there was this thing about, WhatsApp's not safe. So someone could see your messages. So 2 million people moved to another application, Telegram. That's a lot of market share, and that's a big lesson for WhatsApp. And so when people see an alternative that works pretty much the same, but encrypts in this case, people will move. And I think that's a very loud message for the industry. So as long as privacy disasters keep happening and people go like, oh my God, I should do something, and then alternatives start to emerge, I think we'll begin to see the beginning of a new future. But it's also down to us. I don't think that Facebook will come up with the anti-Facebook. It'll have to be another actor, and we still don't know.
But on a positive note, I have to say, in our, let's say, a range of proposals and alternatives, we always discussed. There was always the ad blocker. The whole story, in fact, starts with them, and it's only in the last few months or so that they've become incredibly popular and effective, and all the social media giants, they're really, really concerned about ad blockers. And so ad blockers have now reached a critical mass, which I really did not expect myself, knowing how obscure they once started, and everybody.
Such a huge disappointment, though.
Huh?
It's like I'm missing it. It's a disappointment that ad blocking is unpopular because we're missing out on the creativity of advertising. These are people. Most of the world works in ad agencies. Most people graduate from art school
correct.
and they go straight into.
We're putting them out of business.
That's how I'm up here on stage because that's how I earned a living.
I've got some friends in that business myself. So
I know you think a lot less of them. But I also run a museum.
But they're still laughing about it. They're a little bit, so maybe they are ignorant. I don't know, but
why not use ads for creative?
No,
good?
but it's interesting because Arjen asks, is that resistance is hidden, right? And you can say with ad blockers also, well, if you activate it, it will make a difference for you, but you're not necessarily letting the whole world know that you've activated this plugin in your browser. It's not a major political act. But now, when you come to think about it, we're living in bloody interesting times when it with this ad blockers, and it can really, really affect a major business like Google, because Google is really almost fully depending on the income of AdSense, right? And all these related ad services that they have.
But Jeremy, are you talking about some sort of creative resistance? Or
yeah,
is
I think like, you want an alternative to Facebook? Write one. I have written several social networks. They're not as popular, of course, as Facebook, but I've also used ad distribution platforms to launch. I have a museum called the U Museum, theumuseum.org, if you're interested. And I use retargeting to follow you with artworks that you'll love, and you can buy them as pillows and mugs and tote bags. And all creative expression is always the answer. In every artist, there is a seed that you can plant that will bloom into a promising future. You just use the technology. It's, as Nam June Paik said, you know, like the TV is art. You can make a painting from it. You can do what you want. The subversive act is the creative act.
Can I just add something?
Yeah.
Sure.
There's good things happening not only in how people use social networks, but also on a deeper scale. So at the EU level, we stopped full body scanners everywhere except for Schiphol. But in the rest of Europe, there was a time where the idea was to install full body scanners everywhere, and the people's response to that meant that they were not installed. We work with lots of companies and governments that want to create better socio-technical architectures to understand how to do things better, and things are changing. So I'd say there's a deep undercurrent of good things happening, which could end tomorrow, but they are there, and there's good things happening. And then on the other side, on creativity and advertising, I think we, as a society, as a humankind, we are amazingly creative. Now, if only we could use that creativity not to sell cars that kill the environment or cereal. Can you imagine the possibilities of that? I mean, there's something really twisted and wrong about current advertising. Advertising, it's often not about museums. It's about things that you don't need, that make you feel bad about who you are, about your body, about your social status, about your popularity. So I'm not going to defend the ad industry because there's good creativity there. The creativity will outlive the ad industry that we have.
True. But maybe there's creative opportunities in cereal we haven't explored yet, and automotive.
They've all been explored in cereal.
Automotive cereal design. I'm not sure. Yeah, anything's possible.
I want to ask you something, because I feel when I look at your work, that you really also try something to express what I would call the shift within networks away from, let's say, decentralization, distributed networks, towards a sort of very, very traditional return of the celebrity we, of course, we can see that the way YouTube is operating, right? YouTube is now producing an enormous amount of celebrities, and the contradiction, let's say, that what maybe was once there between old media like television, etc., who were producing these celebrities, and new media, right, who were promoting decentralization, distributed whatever, right? That's no longer there, and that's how I read and enjoyed your your performance here. You're doing that entirely in the framework of the celebrity.
Yeah, I mean, the professors that I had in school, they worked very hard to make cable access like a thing for artist video, right? Like when video, I come from a video art background, to be perfectly sincere, I'm always sincere. I don't know what I'm talking about. Anyway, and the idea of distribution was a debate 30 years ago, 20, 30 years ago, and then we have the technology now that everyone would have. I mean, there would have been like quite a party if that had just come out in 1984 or something like that. And so don't lose sight of the creative potential is what I always promote. And misusing technology is one way you can do that, or celebrity is a form of technology.
But how can we sabotage the celebrity mechanism?
I mean, we already are. I think I look at the audience, and my whole life I've always felt on stage, my life as a millennial, on the very edge of the millennial, but has been that my audience is often more celebrious than I am, and I'm on stage. And I don't think there are very many times in history that that's happened, that I can look at this audience and I know that everyone here is more talented than I am, and probably has a social platform for what they think is awesome and cool, and that feels pretty special to me. The niches that now, whether it's niche or sexual fantasy, anyway, all of those things can be explored in marvelous ways that we shouldn't discount, I don't think. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
So, on that note, to our talented audience, does anyone have one last penetrating question before 11 o'clock? Yes.
Okay, I'll try to penetrate. There was one thing that I felt was missing. I'll be very honest, I still have Facebook. And I have a love-hate relationship with it. But I have a lot of friends all over the world, and I kind of like to spy on them sometimes. I think the thing that we're also forgetting is that a lot of people use Facebook for PR nowadays, that they use it for like the companies that they're running, if you look at it on an actual level, they are benefiting from it. They are capitalizing on it, sure, Facebook is capitalizing on us as well. But for them, the trade-off is worth it because they get enough likes, and they're so usually they're so insecure. A lot of creative people that it feeds this this insecurity in them, and that's why it stays. And the question is then, how do you get out of this loop? Because I think as a designer, Facebook is very badly designed, but it's genius. It taps into the human need, has there any research been done on how much actually we're capitalizing on Facebook? How much I earned in my life by putting my website on my profile. It's done me a lot of good things actually.
I have an anecdote about a Dutch artist. Constant Dullart, who's one of my favorite artists and a dear friend. And he swore off Facebook. He left Facebook a few years ago. And then this year, he had to sell a product on Kickstarter, another conceptual art project, which is marvelous, this video player, which is also a Trojan horse to get his artwork into major institutions. And he had to go back on Facebook because he had to get the word out about his Kickstarter project, which was also a satirical Kickstarter project. But understanding that he realized that he could use Facebook in his, as a tool for him, which is, I think, what you're saying, like, as a PR tool or as a tool for creative production. If you looked at it that way, it might be a more powerful way of looking at it. I know I'm repeating myself, but yeah.
Geert, did you have a point on this? I think because you mentioned some sort of numbness or the listlessness that comes with scrolling through Facebook and social media. I think you touched on that a little bit. But
cynical reason.
Yeah.
We know it's bad, but we use it nonetheless.
Yeah.
But which is what I'd say. The problem with Facebook is not so much Facebook. The problem with Facebook is that it's the facade of an advertising company. But a social network doesn't have to be a bad thing. It's about the data management and the ulterior motives. And so you could have the same good tool without everything that comes with it. But I think the problem is what comes with it, not so much the tool itself. So we need to build better social technical architectures for social networking that are not trying to do other things.
I agree.
There was one more question with it.
I just wanted to kind of challenge the idea that there's more advertising nowadays. Actually, I feel like advertising has gone down. I know ad block has been around for a while now, and I've had it for ages, and I feel like I haven't been exposed to too much advertising. I don't feel oversaturated by advertising, but things like VHS, for instance, was a linear way of experiencing a film, and before you got to the film you had to watch 5 adverts. But now we don't have to do that, and with peer-to-peer file sharing, which is a very widely used system, which we've been using for maybe a decade, we've been getting films and not having to have the adverts that come along with them, and that's just kind of one example of how I think maybe is advertising really that bad? What I think is more important is the fact that we're in this constant stream of data that we can't keep up with the news anymore. We don't know what's present anymore, or what's prevalent anymore. And I think maybe there needs to be some kind of maybe a private sector solution, like a search machine for ourselves, where we can see the burstiness of what we've been looking at for the last year, and be able to analyze that and then share it with everyone, so that you can find out what really is important in the world, which I think we've kind of lost track of because it's so hard to see. Does that make any sense?
Yeah. Is there a question though, or is it just a general
No, I think
comment?
it's making a good point, like-
All right. Good. It's a good point. Yeah. All right. Well, on that note, thank you for your comments and for your questions, and thank you for being here. Thank you for everyone for tonight's talks.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah. Enjoy the rest
love
of
you.
Impact. Thank you.
You can sit. So I'm the Mark Zuckerberg of this little shindig. I can kind of lure you here, though not under false pretense. But I just like to identify some of the key points here, and I think that one of them was raised this afternoon. A little talk I had with Tobias Ravel, who was referring to the 15 minutes of fame thing, right? Warhol's. Famous words, and that we might want to replace that with future tense idea of that we might want 15 minutes of invisibility. So maybe that's a thought for the future, or for famous new media artists. This afternoon, I just like wrapping up this day on one other last note. I think there's many analogs way in which we're dealing with digital life, and one of the other points raised in the archival issues in the Memory of Technology panel this afternoon is that we have this very analog approach to digital life, and maybe we need more than one hook and one loop. In the Velcro metaphor by Kristen Gwynne Becker, and the system just needs a bigger amount of possibilities than it has right now. So I would like to thank the audience again for coming. I would like to thank Jeremy Bailey, Gemma, Galdon, Clavel, Geert Lovink, and Natalie Dixon for a wonderful moderation. Thank you guys for sticking around on this beautiful Saturday night. Halloween is about to start for some of you, I think. We hope to see you again tomorrow for the last day of the Impakt Festival 2015. Thank you.